so this is something that I wanted to mention in the next couple. So a lot of people, they saw the Tony DeAngelo situation. They went, okay, it's a big thing. It'll get me lots of clicks. And there's nothing wrong with that. No disrespect to any YouTubers that did that, by the way. Like, this is just what I saw, because obviously I'm quite keyed up with what's going on in the YouTube space. And I saw a lot of hockey YouTubers make like videos a day or two after the allegations came out, or the news or the reports, the initial reports came out. And that's fine, because they've got a source that they can link there, and they gave their 2 cents on it. Now, I was thinking, I made the video, as you said, Hugh, like I made the Tony DeAngelo video like a week, 10 days after the whole Tony DeAngelo situation came about. And that's purely because I wanted to, first of all, I did a whole recap of his entire career from juniors and mentioned all of the different incidents that he'd had within juniors, like when he got suspended in juniors once or twice. He got suspended with the Arizona Coyotes when he was with them. Does anybody remember Tony DeAngelo's with the Arizona Coyotes? Like, I didn't until I started recording
vaguely,
it.
Vaguely.
Do you remember that he was drafted by the Tampa Bay Lightning? I didn't remember that either, you know? Like, it's all these little bits of information that I find interesting that then I put them into the video, and everyone's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. But then I wanted to make sure when I made that video, I got all the information from that situation. Like, obviously, the whole Tony DeAngelo situation hasn't been resolved yet. When it will be resolved, we have no idea. But then I wanted to make sure that I had several different sources, several different pieces from credited journalists like the Elliot Friedmans, the Chris Johnstons of the NHL broadcasting journalist world. I wanted to make sure that I had several different reports on what was going on, because then you can cross-reference them all, and because I'm telling it like as a story as opposed to this is what happened, it flows a little bit better, and I can kind of corroborate different viewpoints and different arguments from different places. So that's why I never usually, with the Tony DeAngelo situation, don't jump on it straight away, because obviously if I jumped on it straight away, I could probably get some decent clicks out of it. But at the same time, as we've said, or as I've said earlier in this podcast, I'm somebody that likes to do my research. I enjoy the research part of it. It's part of the fun for me, you know? Like, so I like delving deeper and kind of mentioning his entire career up to this point. And I'm painting the story of this is a guy that's had run-ins before, whether it be in juniors or the professional level. So something like this happening might not be that out of the blue, although it has been a few years since he had an incident take place. But to kind of sum up my Tony DeAngelo thoughts, I completely understand why the Rangers have decided that it might not be best for him to continue with the team. Will he? As I said in my video, I wouldn't be surprised if he never played another NHL game based on his reputation within the league. Do I think that's going to be the situation? Perhaps, perhaps not, because at the end of the day, he's a 50-point scorer in 63 games last season. That's a pretty valuable commodity in the NHL, attitude aside. So if a team gets desperate and decide they need him on their blue line, he could find himself on another NHL roster. And although they'd probably have to answer some questions from fans be like,
I don't quite think it's a Slavoj Voinov or Mitchell Miller situation.
No. See, with those two situations, Slavoj Voinov, which is a good one, that's a good callback.
That was your first Whatever Happened to video.
Yes, indeed it was. Yeah. So, that feels like years ago I made that now. He's now, because he joined St. Petersburg, I think he's now with Avangard. I think he spent the last couple of years with Avangard. I think he spent a year or two with St. Petersburg, then moved to Omsk in the Eastern Conference. And I think I'm not sure if he was rolling as an alternate captain this year, because Alexei Emelin is currently the captain of that team, and Ilya Kovalchuk, he's now with the team, and they're co-captaining the roster, which is pretty cool. Kovalchuk had a good stint when he got back to the KHL. I think he was a point per game for the rest of the season, which is pretty impressive, all things considered, considering he's like 36, 37. But I digress. Slavoj Voinov, Mitchell Miller, I certainly understand those situations and why I don't quite understand why Arizona would draft him in the first place if they had those concerns, but that's not my place to say. I'm not in the Arizona Coaches Organization, although there was a big investigative piece that was done by The Athletic recently, I think. I want to say it was Katie Sloan, but that might not be correct. You'd have to fact check me on that one. Whoever it was, she did a big piece of interviewing lots of people involved in the Arizona Coyotes organization and kind of painting a bigger picture about the dysfunction that's going on there. And then they address the Mitchell Miller situation, kind of have thoughts about that. It's a really interesting piece. You should definitely go and check it out. But so the D'Angelo's situation, it is a different situation, Hugh. You're right. Like it's a different situation. But at the end of the day, the difference between this situation and some of the other situations, this one happened with other players in the locker room. And we can talk about players having that kind of tag, locker room cancer, or whatever you want to call it. We can talk about them having that tag for stuff they've done off the ice or away from the team. But when it becomes players involved with the team, that's where it starts to get a little bit more difficult to kind of be like, should we give this guy another chance? This guy obviously had run-ins. If some of you who are listening to this or watching this haven't watched my video, which perfectly understandable, I mentioned how D'Angelo back in juniors when he was back with the Sarnia Sting, it was one of his, I think it was just after his draft with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Can't remember which season it was. I think it was the 12-13 season, something like that, or his draft year. He was suspended for 8 games, I think, for the way he spoke to one of his teammates. I can't remember if it was potentially racist or homophobic related, maybe both. I can't quite remember. I don't have the script in front of me, so I can't fact check myself. But it was the first time that the OHL had to induct that rule for players on their own team. Like they'd had to do it for players on other teams. Like obviously, like in the heat of the moment, some people will throw a certain unnecessary term towards another player because they slash them or they're cross-checking each other in front of the net. These things happen. It doesn't mean they're right, but these things happen. But then you get a situation where he did it to his own teammate. Like that, if you need kind of evidence of the kind of attitude,
that's not a heat of the moment.
No, absolutely not.
That could.
It didn't necessarily say it was in a game situation. It might have been during a practice. It might have been away from the rink. So it's one of those situations where it happened, and it could have. We don't know exactly when, but it's against a person on your own team. So if he's treating players on his own team like that, then when he gets suspended multiple times throughout his career for abuse of officials, it's kind of like, okay, we're starting to see a bit of a trend here. Now, does that mean that all of that should be brought into account with this individual event? Maybe, maybe not. It didn't happen when he was in the NHL. So what's the relevance, you could argue? But at the same time, you're starting to see a pattern here. And then teams look at that pattern and go, do we really want somebody like this on this team? Because like I said in my video, I know I'm rambling a little bit, but like I said in my video, teams like, now that he's had this incident, before when the New York Rangers picked him up, he'd had a few incidents, but he went about 2 years without anything notable happening, anything reported on. Pretty much when he joined New York, other than his tweeting, which they've said is not a reason as to why they terminated his contract or have moved on from him. Other than that, the only reason, or the reason they're claiming, is because through the actions that had happened as the season went on and after the game against Pittsburgh with Georgiev and everything like that. So yeah, it's like another team's going to have to pick that up, and there's the possibility that it happens again. Like there isn't a 2.5 year buffer between what happened with Dangelo and Georgiev. There hasn't been time for, if teams want it, personal growth or whatever they want to call it. So they're picking up a guy that has just been dropped from his previous team because he was causing problems in the locker room. Does a team really want that? I don't think so.
No. I mean, maybe this might be another Jesse Puljujarvi occurrence. I know obviously Puljujarvi was not nearly as controversial as Dangelo, but everyone thought that he had played his last game as an Oiler, and I think it was reported that he said, I'm not playing with you guys. You guys have to trade me, or else I'm going to Europe, like that. But now he's come back and he seems to have really matured, and he's doing pretty well. He may not be the player that he was drafted to be by the Oilers, but yeah, I mean, we'll see how things unfold for sure. But yeah, I like to think that even though obviously D'Angelo has some stuff to work out, he's got to figure things out. I like to think that he can it's not too late for him to redeem himself to an extent.
So just to quickly address two of those things, I agree with you for the most part, absolutely. Puljujarvi, the difference between the D'Angelo situation and the Puljujarvi situation, Puljujarvi left the NHL because he wasn't playing well enough on the ice for the Oilers coaching staff to put him on there more often. So he then decided, obviously, you know what, I'm going to go back overseas, play in Finland. He played really well overseas, I might add. He was so good for Karpat. He was such a vital player for that team. And obviously, because I'm interested in European hockey, I kept an eye on it. And it's like, oh, right, he's doing really well. So the difference is DeAngelo's situation has been brought about because of his off-ice issues. Puljujarvi is kind of a much more common one. He just simply wasn't playing well enough. And now he's had that chance, like you mentioned, to mature overseas, kind of, obviously being the 4th overall pick, there's a lot of hype and expectations that come with that and a lot of responsibility. So getting the chance to kind of be the go-to guy on a roster for a Karpat in the Finnish Liga, can come back over. And obviously the one thing that I think gets lost in that story is the fact that they changed general manager by the time Puljujarvi came back. Peter Chiarelli was the one that drafted him. So Ken Holland's now in charge of the Oilers, obviously. So that might be a big factor as to why he decided to come back. He got a new general manager that might actually not play hardball as much, and they can kind of, it's a completely new relationship between the two of them. So they're, of course, both of them are wanting to find success together. And then what's the other thing you mentioned? Oh, I've forgotten now. It was the Puljujarvi stuff. What did you mention after the Puljujarvi stuff, you? Oh, I can't remember off the top of my head now.
I think I just mentioned that. I think just now it was Puljujarvi. I just meant like,
sure,
as an example of a player who looked like he was done with that team. And then,
yeah.
And then all it took was, some time away. But again, I mean, your point about the new GM, that's obviously very relevant. And I know obviously Puljujarvi and DeAngelo are not the same situations. I'm just thinking though that, sometimes all it can really take is just some, a season or two away from, the team, or away from North America even. But that can, again, my only point though is that I like to think that DeAngelo is not like, DeAngelo's NHL career might be on hold for now, but it may not be over. And I think if he can mature, which I believe he can, that would be great. But
so to kind of summarize my thoughts on that, because I think you're hitting the nail on the head there a little bit. Tony DeAngelo, is his career in the NHL over? Maybe not. That's for the 32 general managers around the NHL to decide at the end of the day, isn't it? He obviously has tremendous upside, but my argument would be he really needs to earn his opportunity to come back to the NHL now. He really needs to earn it, because he's not going to be given it. He's been given it in the past. He was a former first-round pick. There's some privilege and reputation that comes with being a former first-round pick in the NHL. You get certain opportunities that other players, whether drafted later on in the rounds or undrafted, don't get. So he's got to consider himself an unrestricted free agent. Yeah, he's getting paid by the Rangers, but he's essentially an unrestricted free agent with no team that wants him right now. He's really got to earn his place in the NHL and show that he belongs there.
Yeah, and when I say that he can redeem himself, that's not to say he will. I'll just say I think he can. I think I can see it happening, but do I see it happening? Not. I would not hang my hat on that.
I wouldn't bet on it. Absolutely not.
No.